Hello and welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for this week's EFL London roundup on a different day to normal. Normally it's on a Thursday, but we're going out on a Tuesday this week for this week only. So see if that creates any different dynamic to the broadcast. Joining me, as always, Chris Thorpe and Billy Mulley. Chris, how are you getting on?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Really, really good.
Good. Billy, how are you? Enjoying the warm weather we've suddenly been given?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Struggling to cope with working in the heat, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get through it.
Yeah, we'll muddle through. I'm pretty sure there's a thunderstorm coming towards the end of this week, so it won't last long, which for people like me that are in a flat that's about 28 degrees, it's definitely a bit too uncomfortable. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the show. Let's start with QPR. And some good news for the Hoops is that Luke Amos is approaching a return to the first team. Obviously, he's been out for several months now with injury. Midfielder, obviously, key first team member before picking up that injury. First of all, Chris, this is just really good news for the player himself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, been out for so long with his injury. It's been a tough time for him. But he's coming in at a really good time when things are on the up for the R's, and I bet he just can't wait to get started and get back involved, really. And he's been so key for them when he has played since coming from Spurs. So, yeah, no, it can only be a boost for both him and the team as a whole, really.
Obviously, he's played a few under-23 games in the sort of final stage of his recovery. Playing championship football is a much sort of different prospect, though, isn't it? How quickly or how long do you think it might take Amos to really get back up to speed, Chris, in terms of playing championship football?
It's going to take him time. They might even look to sort of keep playing him in the under-23s for a while, and then sort of use him off the bench in the actual league games in the championship. I don't think you want to rush him back too quickly. Obviously, he plays in a position of the field where there's quite a lot of tackles flying in the midfield, that kind of thing. He's quite a physical player himself anyway. Likes to put himself about a bit. So last thing you want is for him to sustain another injury and then go back on the treatment table. So yeah, they've got to be very careful with it, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cruciate ligament injury, but sometimes you find that, with a recovery like this, once a player does come back into the fold, they can get those sort of niggling injuries that come in other parts of the body that just for a lack of action in the last few months that can happen. Billy, QPR have got a lot of central midfield options. Obviously, the summer was very productive for them. The likes of Andre Dozzell came in, Stefan Johansson returned this time on a permanent deal. They got players like Don Ball as well. Amos is a very good midfielder. I don't think there's any denying that. But how tough do you think his task is going to be trying to force his way back into that team, looking at the options that Rangers have?
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, as you say there. They've got some brilliant options, and he now finds himself in a position where he's not just adapting back to championship football, he's adapting to a top team in the championship now, because QPR have really kicked on. They've recruited really well with the likes of Phil, Johansson, Dozzell as well. They've made some really good additions, and he's got the ability. We've all seen that before. It was not so long ago he was putting on a show for Tottenham's under-21s. So it's about, as Chris says there, just getting game time back into him, whether that's under-21s football or from the bench. He just needs football, and I'm sure he can sort of hit those heights again.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be just good to see him back involved as and when he gets the opportunity. Obviously, that goes to the likes of Charlie Owens as well, another midfielder at QPR that's working his way back after a lengthy injury. That's Luke Amos, who is getting close now to an R's return. Let's move away from the Hoops. Let's talk Millwall. And we're going to touch on some comments from Millwall manager Gary Rowett from earlier in the week. He said in the summer that there was never really a chance of Jed Wallace leaving. Obviously, there's speculation written around him, but Rowett said there was no real sort of firm opportunities for him to move. Wallace is, however, still in his final year of his contract, and it remains to be seen if he's going to sign a deal with Millwall and extend his stay there, or potentially, of course, leave on a free next summer. Chris, what do you make of this situation? Are you first of all surprised that there wasn't as much interest in Wallace as Rowett's suggesting there was?
Yeah, definitely. I think he had a great season last season, and he's been pretty much first name of the team sheet at Millwall since he went there, really. And you would have expected one or two clubs to be interested. Obviously, didn't really hear anything. There wasn't any firm sort of interest, no bids forthcoming, as Rowett alludes to there with his comments. But with him being in the last year of his contract, it's quite a worrying situation. The last thing you want is to lose someone of his talents on a free transfer next year. So maybe January will be the time when he actually leaves. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out for sure.
Billy, what do you make of the situation? Obviously, we know the quality that Wallace has got. Do you think there's a good chance of him signing a new deal at Millwall, or do you think he is sort of weighing up the opportunity to run the deal down and leave on a free next summer?
It's a difficult one because I personally believe he's got the ability to perhaps have a season in the Premier League. I think he's been consistently brilliant for 2 or 3 years now, and just looking at his statistics as well, it's 10 goals in both of the last 2 seasons, double figures of assists in the last 2 seasons as well. So he's just a player that brings a lot to Millwall, and if he was to go, he leaves a massive void. And I know they've brought Ojo in now, so takes the creative sort of burden away from him a little bit, but at the same time, it's a big player, and Gary Rowett seems to be quite confident at the moment. But as time progresses and we get closer to the end of his contract, I'm sure it's going to be a bit more of a worrying time.
Do you think there's a case to suggest, Chris, with this one, that Wallace might just be looking at whether Millwall are going to be making the playoffs this year and obviously challenging for the Premier League? Do you think that's sort of in the back of his mind before he really commits to, X amount of years further at the Den?
Yeah, they're a really frustrated side. I mean, they look like they're going to make the top 6 and then they slip away at some points of each season, really. And they've been sort of unlucky in a way. They just haven't had that extra edge to get into those top 6 places. And I think, that could be a factor for sure. Getting to a point in his career where he's kind of reaching his best sort of prime years, if you like. And he's probably sitting there thinking, what more can I achieve with Millwall? Like, are they realistically going to get in the playoffs this season? I don't really think so. And then, he just wants to see what's out there. I think it's the same for anyone in any walk of life. It doesn't matter what job you're doing. If you're always looking to see, is there going to be another opportunity for me to progress in the company I'm with or any other companies? And I think he's just looking at it from, not only a footballing perspective, but also a career perspective. So it's completely fair enough, to be honest.
Definitely. Okay, we'll see what happens with Wallace in the months ahead. Let's move away from an outgoing that didn't happen to an incoming that has at Charlton. And the Addicts have announced the arrival of Pape Souaré. They announced it on Monday evening. A left-back, obviously played for the likes of Crystal Palace in the past. Billy, let's come to you first of all with this one. It's probably the signing that the Addicts were kind of crying out for, wasn't it? I mean, in terms of their options in that area of the pitch.
Definitely, it was a necessary move that they had to make, and I think it's quite a good signing in that respect. Purrington, who's their sort of go-to left-back option at the moment, has missed every game so far. Chris Gunter's moved across, and whilst he's done a good job and he's got that experience there, I think what Pape Souaré brings is more of an attacking presence. He's more athletic, and he's a player that I imagine will kick on. And I know he hasn't played too much football in recent times. I think he missed the entire of last season. But once he's up to speed, I think he's a very good player that at League One level should have a really, really good season. He was offered a trial at Coventry as well, which it seemed that it was going well from fan reactions. It seemed that he was holding his own, but their signing of Ian Martson, who was at Charlton last season, has seemingly put an end to that. And then, that sort of afforded the chance for Charlton to come in here. So I think there's a lot of potential with this one, and I think it's a really good move from Charlton, and it might not be something that happens straight away, him coming in to play first team football, but I think that Adkins will integrate him quite well, and it'll be a good move in the end.
I mean, on paper at least, Chris, it looks like quite an impressive coup, doesn't it? Obviously, you look at his CV, he's played in the Premier League here in this country, and did well at times there as well. What are you sort of expecting from him once he does sort of settle in and forces his way into that Charlton team?
Listen, from one perspective, obviously, the international experience, which you rightly allude to, is really good for a League One team to bring in someone like that. The question is obviously going to be about the fitness. How long is it going to take him to get up to speed with things like the pace of the game? Obviously, getting fit in training isn't the same as match fitness. He's not had a pre-season for as much as I know. But overall, I think it's a smart move for him at a stage of his career where he needs to get himself back on the map. And obviously, he's moving back to an area that he knows well, South London, time at Palace. So it could work out for him. But I wouldn't expect too much from him at the moment. I think it would take maybe two, maybe 3 months for him to get fully up to speed. And I still think Perrington will be first choice when he's fully fit and available as well.
Okay. And Billy, I think as well, it's just a sign that Charlton aren't quite done in terms of incomings, are they really? They're looking where they can to add to their squad a little bit more in terms of the free agent market.
Yeah, I think perhaps the start they made to the season and the fact that we keep saying it's a better League One campaign this season. So I think that they'll always keep an eye out. And if a player's on the market and it's a free agent and it's a doable deal and they improve your team that much, then yeah, why not? Okay,
we'll see how he does. International break. Still rumbling on. It is coming to an end, but not many London clubs were in action at the weekend. One, however, were in League One were AFC Wimbledon, which we'll come to now. I'm sure much to the delight of Chris as well in attendance. Chris, let's just talk the game in general first of all. Obviously went behind against Oxford United, but then really roared back and an impressive 3-1 win in the end for the Dons. What did you make of the performance?
Yeah, I said to a few listeners talking about the game. First half, we weren't really at our best. Probably the worst half we've had in the league this season. Oxford had two pretty decent chances that they should have stuck away, either side of going ahead, which was obviously an unfortunate goal for Hagen to be dispossessed as he was. Very unfortunate, but it happens. Second half, completely different. Tempo seemed to rise. I think it was helped by the atmosphere of the crowd. I also said to quite a few people that it's probably the best home game I've been to in a good few years. Obviously, being at the new ground helps. But yeah, no, brilliant. 2 goals from set pieces. It's something we've really excelled at. We've actually scored the most goals from set pieces in League One. So that's something we can be really proud of. And obviously, we've done a lot of work on that with our set pieces coach coming in last season. And then obviously the third goal was a sort of counter-attacking move, if you like, with Sal. Obviously he came off the bench, took it down the left, played it to Rodoni, and everyone knows he's got that in his locker to bend it in around the goalkeeper. And he did, and it was superb, to be honest. And yeah, it's emotional. I just want to pay tribute to Jack Lonergan, only 28 years old. We unfortunately lost him. Really loved member of the fan base. And that win was for him. So yeah, it was a great day for everyone involved, to be honest.
Yeah, and there was a really nice tribute as well, wasn't it, before the game?
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough to speak to Jack's father in the weeks leading up to it, and we've done a bit for the programme. And just, I never knew him personally, but to get to know him and get to know what sort of person he is, I could tell he's really well loved. And yeah, it's such a sad story, but I'm glad that the whole club done themselves proud in terms of remembering him and trying to make things a bit better for his loved ones. So that's, some things are more important than football, and that certainly felt like one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Jack Rodoni as well there, Chris, a player that's obviously been at Wimbledon a long time, coming through. How well do you think he's doing in terms of standing out when, we've spoken before in this show about some of the players that have come in from Premier League clubs on loan. Rodoni isn't one of them, but he's still a young player. It must be nice to see him, take the headlines as he did at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. He come into his own under Mark Robinson since he took over the job as head coach. Obviously, a player that the coaching staff really know well from his youth days, and he's just going from strength to strength. I'm pretty sure he's grown in height this season, actually, which This obviously helped him to score. Well, not so much this season. Obviously, scored a header against Oxford. It's basically on the line. But last season, he got a couple of headers.
I think Chris might have. I think we've lost Chris. Let's take Chris out for a minute. Hopefully he can improve his connection. But yeah, Jack Rodoni, really impressive for AFC Wimbledon. One other team in action at the weekend, one of the London clubs, Leyton Orient. Let's just look at them quickly. Yeah, Billy, Leyton Orient, 2-2 at Newport County, went in front twice. Joe Gallen after the game said that they felt a little bit disappointed with a point, felt as though they could have potentially won the game. Harry Smith getting a couple of goals. A fairly impressive performance though when all was said and done for Orient.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely disappointing the fact they didn't win the game in terms of going ahead twice. But Newport's a difficult place to go, and the fact that they've been in the playoff positions past 2 seasons means it enhances that, really makes it even more difficult. And I think with Harry Smith scoring again, we spoke about him before, that it's a big season for him, and he's got what it takes to lead Leyton Orient to the higher division, and that's exactly what Michael Flynn said, the Newport manager. He said that he tried his luck with Harry Smith this summer. So he's a player that is not just desired by the ones at Leyton Orient, he's also sort of gained his plaudits from elsewhere. But yeah, I think Orient have the right to be ambitious at the moment. They're building a team that wouldn't look out of place in the division above. I mean, the likes of Paul Smith, Archibald and Drennan on the wings. They've got the Cypriot pair of Satoriu and Kiprianu, who are looking very impressive. I know they weren't involved at the weekend, but they've assembled a team that will compete this season. And if they can sustain sort of this early form, I'm sure they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season.
Yep, certainly been a good start for Orient. Another decent point on the board. That rounds out the main headlines for this week. Let's just look ahead to the weekend. Now, it does seem a little bit odd, admittedly, looking ahead to the weekend on a Tuesday afternoon. That might give you an idea of how our week's going, but we'll move on anyway. We have had a comment as well coming from Matt House, Fulham fan. Score predictions for Fulham's match away at Blackpool at the weekend. So we might as well start with that. That would make sense. Billy, what do you think about this one?
I cannot see anything other than a Fulham win, and I know saying that it's never a good sign, but the way that both clubs have started only suggests that this result can go one way. Blackpool have struggled up top. I know they picked up a good draw with AFC Bournemouth, but they have struggled to sort of adapt to the rigours of Championship football. And Fulham, we've spoken a lot about how brilliant they've been going forward. They've got a strong defence as well. And yeah, it's just Blackpool, they're just in a position where it hasn't really clicked as of yet, but they have recruited quite a lot of people this season. So whether that's them waiting to click into gear, we just have to wait and see. But yeah, nothing suggests that Fulham shouldn't go out and win this one quite convincingly.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Fulham's just extra quality will tell. In games like this already, Fulham has shown that they've just got that extra level about them. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Fulham win here. Is that a scoreline you deco?
I'd go even more convincing. I think I'll go for a 4-0.
Okay, maybe a weekend to forget then for Blackpool fans. Elsewhere in the Championship, Reading and QPR go head-to-head, the fake hoops derby, I believe it's colloquially known as. What are you expecting for QPR for this one, really?
Again, QPR are another side that started really well, and I think that they'll come out victorious against Reading, who have struggled so far. Reading have conceded a lot of goals. QPR have scored a lot of goals. Add in Andre Gray as well, and I think we're looking at a QPR win, maybe 2-1. I'll go for.
Okay, yeah, no, I think it'll be 2-1 as well. I think it'll be a narrower scoreline then between Fulham and Blackpool, but I do see the West London club perhaps edging it. Millwall on their travels as well. They've arguably got the toughest game of all the London clubs this weekend, away at West Brom. Billy, can you make much case for the Lions getting a result with the Hawthorns?
It's going to be difficult, I think, going to West Brom or Fulham. They're at sort of the same level at the moment where it's just a daunting task. But Millwall will take confidence. I think Ojo coming in, the fact that they've had this time over the international break to recuperate, I think that might stand them in good stead. But I think West Brom might prove to be too strong, even with their defensive problems. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 again, West Brom's way.
Yeah, I think I also fancy West Brom this weekend. Unfortunately for Lions fans, we'll go 2-0 to the Baggies. Dropping into League One, Charlton play host to Cheltenham at the Valley. I'm hoping to be there to cover it for Football League World. It should be a really, really interesting game. Nigel Adkins obviously, had the weekend off last week with the international break affecting Charlton. But he's got a lot of new players coming in. He's had that opportunity to really sort of bed them in. Against the Charlton team that obviously drew against MK Dons at the weekend. Billy, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm caught in two minds whether this 2-week break has sort of halted their progress. They went into it after 2-0 victory over Crewe, seemingly turning a corner. But at the same time, as you say, they've had these new signings, Soiree, they've had Elliot Lee as well come in, and Sam Lavelle. So integrating them over these 2 weeks might have been sort of the best possibility for them. I think they'll continue after beating Crewe, and I think they might win this one 2-1.
Yeah, no, I think I concur with that prediction. I might go 2-0 Cheltenham. I think they might just keep a clean sheet. Obviously, at this point, we would have asked Chris for his Wimbledon prediction for their trip to Morecambe, but he unfortunately dropped out with his internet connection. I'd imagine he may have predicted a win, though, for the Dons on the back of their Oxford United win last weekend. Billy, can you see Wimbledon also emerging victorious?
Yeah, well, there's plenty to be excited about, but I think Morecambe are in that sort of similar mould to Cheltenham at the moment, where they've been tough to beat, and going to Morecambe, I think, might be a tougher task than most might actually expect. I'm going to go for a 1-0, I think.
Yeah, I can see a draw as well, actually. I think Morecambe are, going to be one of those teams that give everyone a game this season in League One. Just dropping into League Two, Sutton United are back in action. Obviously, their game didn't go ahead against Colchester last weekend. They're playing at home to Stevenage. Billy, you saw Stevenage last week in their 1-1 draw with Swindon. How tough a test do you think they're going to pose to Sutton this weekend?
Yeah, I know Stevenage haven't won in 4 league games now, but the positive signs are there, and they've just, as Saturday happened, it was a late goal that undone them, and before it was little things going wrong. But I don't think Sutton, I don't think bottom of the league is just at the moment. I know they've only played 4 games, and some of the other teams have played 6, but they've also played some very tough teams and have been beaten in the very last minute in 2 of the games. So I think there's a lot more to come from Sutton, but I think Stevenage, being the home side, might come out victorious again on this one. I'm going to go for a 1-0.
Okay, I'm going to go for a draw in this particular fixture. One left, Leyton Orient against Oldham. I think it's probably hard to look past the O's at the moment. They're in a really good place, and Oldham are in a place that's pretty much the opposite, aren't they? Obviously, another on-field protest during their game at the weekend where they lost to Barrow 3-0. So, can you make any case for the Latics getting a result at Orient, Billy?
Not entirely. Football's unpredictable, but I think this is probably the best game that Leyton Orient could have hoped for at this point. The problems at Oldham persist, and I can't see anything other than a Leyton Orient win. Plus, they've got the Cypriot pair back as well, who have been impressive so far. I think I'm going to go for another convincing win here, maybe 3-0 Leyton Orient.
Yeah, I think I could see 3-0 here too for the O's, which would obviously keep their early season form nicely on track, and obviously piles more woe on Oldham. That's it for this week's edition of the EFL London Roundup here on Football League World TV. Next week we should be back on our usual Thursday slot, so tune in then if you can. Also, if you can, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'd be really appreciated. Billy, thanks for joining me this week. Chris, if you can hear us, thanks for joining us for the time that you did, and we'll catch you next time. Speak then.